Our next speaker is Jamie Ridgely. She's going to be speaking on learning and insights from Trutera's carbon program. Jamie leads Trutera initiatives to deliver ecosystem service opportunities to the Land O'Lakes grower and retailer network, including development and implementation of Trutera's carbon program. She has over 20 years experience in soil and water conservation and building innovative solutions to agricultural's environmental challenges. I think she also counts as at least very close to being able to speak for a farmer with her other experiences. So Jamie, happy to have you today, and welcome to the panel.
Thank you, Christine. All right. How is my screen sharing going here? Can you all hear me?
Yes. Your screen is shared.
Okay.
You need to go into presentation
But
mode.
I need to go to presentation mode. Yes, I can't find my toolbar. I'm getting there.
Okay. I see it. I'd click it for you if I could.
I know. I can't. My toolbar is hiding it. Let me see if I can minimize it. Oh, here. I'm wasting precious time here.
You just
1 second.
You just unshared, just so you know.
Yeah, I know. I had to get rid of my bar there. I think I will be okay. I am not in a usual location, working on a very small screen, and nothing is operating. I'm going to try this again. So let me move the toolbar.
Huh.
I can start it from anywhere but my main toolbar here.
I can see your mouse. If you move it down there, I'll tell you when you're close to the button.
Okay, that sounds like great teamwork. Okay, that's got to be here somewhere. Only I'm gonna click my toolbar.
Oh, what about?
Okay, here. How about we do this?
Okay, perfect. Now go to the
Big
right.
enough we can see it.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that will work.
We're gonna go with that. We're
Okay.
gonna improvise a bit. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Christine, for the introduction and the opportunity to be here today. As Christine and Jason both alluded to, at Trutera, we have gotten the opportunity to work very closely with both Dr. Morgan as well as Dr. Eckerson, as we have explored how we can really optimize the soil sampling strategies that we're using in Trutera's carbon program, as well as generally how we're deploying soil sampling and soil health monitoring throughout our Trutera network. So I'm not going to talk about that latter part much today, but that's also something that we're really excited to be working on them with. So what I'd like to do today is just build a bit on some of the things that Jason shared. Of course, he shared some of the specific learnings about the importance of scale and some of the things that we have been working through. I'm going to talk just a little bit more broadly about who we are at Trutera, as well as just our general approach to soil and water conservation and soil health planning, and how that's kind of shown up in our carbon program, and then share just at a high level some of the more program level insights and lessons learned as we have gone through this journey in the last couple of years. To start off here, just a bit of a view of who Trutera is. If you don't know Trutera, Trutera is the sustainability business of Land O'Lakes. Land O'Lakes is a 100-year-old farmer-owned cooperative, best known, of course, for the Land O'Lakes butter. But we are quite a bit more than butter. You can see the whole farm to fork view of the place that we have in the food and ag value chain down below. But we have really 3 sister businesses within the Land O'Lakes enterprise. Our Winfield crop inputs and insights business, which is what gives us a lot of the scale and access to the ag retail network that we enjoy as we work to deploy these sustainability services. The Purina animal nutrition business, and then of course Land O'Lakes dairy food. And this map just gives you a glimpse of the scale. I think it might also help you understand a bit about some of the information that Jason shared earlier as you think about sample design as we've looked to deploy our carbon program. The larger orange dots on this slide are our actual Truterra member ag retailers. And then all those smaller dots are Winfield United locations. And so we have more of an indirect influence in those locations, but those darker orange, larger dots are all of our Truterra ag retail locations. We have about 50 member ag retailers, and of course, many of those have multiple locations. And so as we think about sample design, there's a couple of unique things that we have going on. One of those is an element of scale. You can see that we have pretty broad representation across the US of participating ag retailers, but also an element of concentration. And so as we have worked with the Health Institute and worked with growers coming into our carbon programs, because we're primarily working, not only working, but primarily working through the footprints of our ag retail network, a lot of times we have the opportunity to have a pretty high sample intensity in a small location. And so the example that Jason shared in Western Iowa is one example of where we have really kind of opportunity for sort of saturation in fairly small areas. And so it allows us to have an understanding or good sample design in a pretty tight area under similarly managed conditions. And so that's really helped us with the way that we've designed and some of the thinking that has involved here. This is just Trutera's mission statement, and I put it up here because I like to often say that Trutera was sustainability before sustainability was cool. And so we haven't aspired to be or started out to be a carbon program. We do have a carbon program, and I'll talk a little bit about what we've been able to accomplish there. But Trutera was started within the ag retail network actually back in, I believe 2016 was the official start. So some of the early days we were known as Sustain, and we actually originated within United Suppliers, which later were merged with Winfield United, and then later was set up by Land O'Lakes as a separate business unit. But we have been working for well over 6 years now on really trying to understand what's the best way to deploy soil and water conservation services through our network of local advisors, through an ag retailer network. And we were doing that well before the carbon market was, was active and an opportunity that was able to help us do this. And so we've learned a lot along the way. This is just a glimpse of what we were able to accomplish in 2021 with our soil carbon program. We did return over $4 million to participating farmers on about 200,000 metric tons of carbon. It was an unregistered carbon credit. So currently the bulk of what we were transacting is unregistered. We are in the process of registering some of the tonnage that we're developing. So that's a parallel effort. We certainly don't, or I should say, we do aspire to be all registered at some point, but being able to transact in an unregistered space with customers who are supporting us in doing that has been just really an incredible learning opportunity for us. And it's allowed us to approach this at scale and be able to answer some really hard questions and have some great learning about how can we do this and be effective at scale. So this is a summary of our 21 carbon program outcomes. We're also obviously midway through development in 2022. And so I can share that we're currently working with about 275 farmers, and I think right around 400,000 acres. So no new quantifications to share quite yet this year, but actively working this year as well with the growers that participated last year as well as new growers this year. This slide really represents what I think is one of the most important things about the way that Trutera is coming to market in this space. And it's, I think, just an important thing to learn about how we develop, or to understand, about how we develop programs. And that's really that we seek to serve 3 unique stakeholder groups and be able to provide value to all 3 of those at the same time. And we believe that in order for the work that we do to be truly sustainable, we have to create unique value for each of those audiences. And so we really see ourselves in a bridge from that current state on the left side, helping to bridge over to the future state, which is what we believe is needed both for the food and ag companies that we serve to meet their climate goals, as well as for our farmer and ag retailer audience to be able to continue to farm profitably with climate change. So you can see there the three customer groups down the left there, the producers or the farmers, of course. Today, certainly experimenting with practice changes. Everyone on this call is very familiar with the work that's been all the great work that's been done to support producers and understand better soil health practices in the nonprofit community, in the USDA community, and there is certainly resources in that space, but they're still somewhat limited. And so we seek to serve that audience and get them to a place where they really have all of the support, financial assistance support, technical assistance support, and we would add to that data management support that's needed for them to be successful farming with new soil health systems. From a retailer and advisor standpoint, for us, it's really about helping them understand the value that they can get by delivering these services to their growers. They are also run a business, and so we need to be able to create the value that makes this worth their time and effort. But again, to reach scale, we think that local advisor is really, really important. And then, of course, the downstream customer audience, our customer group or stakeholder group. And it's one thing for them to be able to buy a carbon credit on the market today, but for us to be able to bring this to scale, there needs to be a significant additional pipeline of practice change. And they're going to need access to those acres and those growers to decarbonize their supply chain. And so we're really seeking to be able to create a system that really uniquely adds value to each of those audiences at the same time, so that they can each meet and advance their independent goals. Kind of a rudimentary view of overall of how Truterra works, and just to kind of give you an idea of how we're approaching this program and how we think about setting up programs and setting up services through our ag retail network. And you'll notice that this is pretty familiar if you've been working in water conservation. This is kind of how we've always engaged farmers in soil and water conservation programming, and that's really what the basis of this is. On step one there on the left, engagement is a big part of this. We have to help all of our audiences understand the problem and the opportunity for them to participate in the space and be making practice changes. Once we've engaged that interest, there's significant support needed to help them be successful in these practice changes. And like I mentioned earlier, we really think that this is three prongs to the kind of support that they need. So very much based on a USDA service center model of technical assistance and financial assistance. But with the carbon market, we also understand that there's need for data management assistance as well. And so we see that as really three key services that we need to be able to deploy at scale to be able to meet the needs of the carbon market and at scale significantly create practice change. And then on the third there, of course, the ability to market those ecosystem outcomes, whether that be through an inset, an offset, a low carbon grain, the market obviously there is yet to mature, but a lot of different options. One of the key things I think about this model that is fundamentally different than a lot of Truterra competitors is we really want to make sure that we're focusing on and supporting the grower in that practice change process in order to create a practice change that is durable or permanent. Those are kind of carbon market terms. But it doesn't make any sense to us at all to put a grower in a position that we think that we're going to contractually obligate them to keeping a practice change in place. We know that doesn't really make any sense. And so we spend a lot of time and thought and structure our programs in a way that allows the grower to be able to successfully experience that change, see the productivity and soil health benefits of those regenerative ag practices. And then once they're convinced that this is the way that they want to farm, we'd like them to then be able to get the benefit and make the commitment in the ecosystem market. And that is a bit of a shift to the way that the market is set up now. And it's a unique way to, it's a unique perspective as to the way that we believe methodologies should be developed, and then also how we're structuring our programs. And then that orange bar across the bottom it just is an indication there of the importance of the data component of that. And I'm not spend a lot of time talking about that. I want to get onto the 4 key lessons here, but the data and measurement fidelity is really an important thing. And again, here we're always kind of that trade-off between scale and rigor. And that's something we spend a lot of time thinking about, and that's something that we're designing for. So there's 4 key things that I want to highlight here in terms of key lessons learned, and I'll kind of rush through these, but we can come back to them with any questions on ones that you'd like to focus on or maybe talk more about. The first one is a bit of an oversimplification. I say this a lot in groups, but it really gets to underscore what Jason was sharing with you before. And so I always say, God made photosynthesis. We know that it works. There's a lot of things we know about it that we don't know about it. I mean, there are parts of this that are still a bit of a mystery, but I think there's a really very important conversation to be had around scale and uncertainty. It is very important that we approach this market with the rigor that it deserves. We have to have, of course, a measurement system that is, that allows for these transactions to be fair and equitable. But we also know that improved soil health has many, many benefits. And so we do believe that you can go too far there and focus on the wrong things. We really want to be able to create systems, again, that are durable and have scale. And that's not always in line with the very, very highest rigor. So there's a balance to be sought there. The second green box there, carbon gave us a reason to self-sustainability. This is a finding from some listening sessions that we did with our ag retail network after we deployed our first carbon program. And it's something that I found really, really interesting, but we've seen it being repeated in other times. And that is that our retail network told us, we had Trutera, we were subscribed to Trutera, we generally believed in it, we were delivering the Trutera technology platform and working with our already soil healthy growers with Trutera, but we weren't really quite sure how to have that conversation with some of the rest of our growers. And then Trutera launched the carbon program and everybody was talking about carbon. So we talked to them about the carbon program because that was something that was kind of tangible and maybe a bit sexy, and we were able to, something we could take to them as an opportunity. But then we realized that everybody's not eligible for the carbon program. And then suddenly we had this entry into a soil health conversation, and we needed a service to be able to start talking to them and putting them on that journey. So we're seeing that while the carbon market may not be the opportunity for everyone for a lot of different reasons, it is giving the private sector kind of a point of entry into that marketplace and the reason for them to start having these conversations. And so we're seeing that reported or repeated in many different ways. In yellow there, I think the third key lesson that we have learned, and this could be easily a 60-minute discussion in itself, but something that I like to note and help people just really understand, the data burden in the carbon market is a really big deal, and it's a really hard problem to solve. Again, we have an issue of data fidelity and scale that are sometimes sort of work in inverse or in conflict with each other that I think deserve consideration. But a lot of times that we hear for primary data, we'll hear companies say to us, well, we're connected to these systems. So we're just going to have these API connections and we're going to open it up and all the data is going to flow in. And I can tell you that that does not solve the problem. That is a huge oversimplification. And so, a lot of work needs to be done to make sure that we're collecting the right data at the right scale, at the right time. Just collecting data doesn't mean it's good data. And so that's a key thing that we're focusing on and thinking about and building for within the Trutera platform and program. And then the last thing that I will leave you with is just encouragement that everything that we're seeing in our experience over the last 2 years in this space just reinforces that, yes, the carbon market is here. Yes, we believe it's a very significant opportunity for agriculture, certainly for conservation agriculture, but this is very, very much still an agronomy and soil health game. I believe Dr. Jerry Hatfield says he thinks the productivity benefits today are somewhere between 9 and 10x the carbon market payment that you can get for soil. And that's very, very much true. No one has a crystal ball in terms of where the carbon market payment is going. But we don't see it being, hundreds of dollars a ton anytime soon. And so right now it's creating an opportunity for us to really come together with all of the good work that this community has done, both from a science and practitioner standpoint over many decades. There's so much that we know here, but it's really, and I think, a time and an opportunity for us to challenge each other and cross collaborate. And how do we bring those things together? How do we leverage the interests that we have today from the private sector and really put all the great work that we've done and the good things that we know to work so that we can really scale soil health. So with that, Christine, I just want to reiterate our thanks for Soil Health Institute, and in that collaboration, that's definitely been one of the most fun things about working in this space, and I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, Jamie, you have one question. I think you've answered bits of it, but maybe you could give us a detailed example or something. Renee Vasillos would love to hear some of the lessons learned that you've been able to capture and react to as you continue to iterate in the program. Yes, well, the biggest one is this, is sort of that balance and the need for scale, and I think Jason did a nice job of kind of providing some opportunity there. We were able to present, he and I together last week at Soil and Water Conservation Society, and we got a lot of great questions from that group, kind of challenging that position, which was wonderful. But I do think that that's key and something that we need to all focus on. So without knowing Renee or her background, I'm not sure which one I would zoom into more than. I don't know, Christine, if you have any more suggestions from her question. No, I think the scale issue is really challenging. Things like measuring bulk density and carbon, as a scientist, are like simple things to do. But even when we were scaling up, right, and we have a team going out measuring bulk density and soil carbon, the things that you don't think are going to be a problem end up being like a whoa, okay, this is what happens when you get back up, figure it out again, make sure we're communicating clearly. I think that they absolutely people. It is people, and I would one thing I shared last week is one of the something I won't ever forget about when we deployed this the first time and working with your team as well as our in-field soil sampling team and of course the sampling lab is the great and in-depth discussions, but they really were very significant process discussions of how are we going to pull this off. And so it was so cool to be able to be part of the team that really dug in and kind of iterated on this is what's important from a research standpoint, but this isn't really how that works in the field, and how are we going to ensure that we get quality and rigor here. And so that was just a fascinating thing to be able to be a part of, and I think those kinds of discussions are so needed in this space. Yeah, I agree. It was some challenging days trying to problem solve quickly and efficiently and still balance that precision versus scale kind of issue. So thank you, Jamie. Appreciate your time today. Yeah. All right.